Zhou Hai, as a core disciple of the Five Poisons sect, although his cultivation was not as high as that of the Poison Crone, had entered the early pure nirvana stage and had become one of the sect's powerful members, receiving much attention from the sect. At this moment, his expression was dark, and a blue light flickered in his right eye. The blue light looked beautiful, but in reality, it was the result of practicing the Five Poisons sect's purple-blue poison attack. So Taoist, you've been in a gloomy mood all the way here. Those who don't know would never suspect anything. Came a sarcastic voice from a black-robed cultivator beside Zhou Hai. This cultivator was originally a man, but there was some rouge on his face, making him look, just like his voice, rather peculiar. Zhou Hai's eyes flashed with cold light as he stared at the black-robed cultivator, and he said in a deep voice, "Zhao Yu, I've put up with you all this way. If you keep mocking me, don't blame me for not being polite. The Five Poisons sect is quite impressive. Zhao would like to see if the Five Poisons sect dares to fight my Motsung sect." The black-robed cultivator smiled faintly, but the smile was extremely cold. Zhou Hai's right eye suddenly brightened with blue light, and just at that moment, a sharp shout came from beside them. "Enough! We three represent our respective sects to search for the Five Poisons sect traitors, not to settle internal conflicts." The speaker was a middle-aged man with cultivation at the mid-pure nirvana stage. Upon his words, both Zhou Hai and Xun'er fell silent. They glared at each other, suppressing their qi and preparing to hold back any further action. This middle-aged man was the core disciple of the Tao Fa sect, the #1 sect of the 6th level star domain. Due to the matter with the Poison Crone, the Five Poisons sect had a hard time explaining the situation and had to sacrifice a significant amount to cover it up. They were forced to send their core disciples to other sects like Human Shields, ostensibly to assist in finding the Poison Crone, but actually to monitor them. If the Poison Crone was not found in a short time, the Five Poisons sect would face a huge crisis. Behind them, several disciples from their respective sects followed, turning into arcs of light as they pierced through the protective layer of the Moro continent and descended. "Zhou Hai, Zhao Yu, you two come with me to the Guiyuan sect. The rest of the disciples will scatter and search every inch of this Moro continent. Don't miss any place, and immediately alert us at the slightest discovery." The middle-aged man's voice was calm, but carried an undeniable authority. The surrounding disciples quickly acknowledged and dispersed to begin their search. They had become accustomed to this routine during their travels to different continents. As for the three of them, they released their full cultivation and rushed towards the Guiyuan sect. The three beams of light tore through the sky with the sound of thunder. Soon, the three arrived in a domineering manner above the Guiyuan sect. Naturally, the sect's cultivators noticed, and under the leadership of the four elders, including Li Qianmei and Li Qianmei, they exited the sect and greeted them in midair. These four had heard of the events in the 5th-level star domain. They knew that the 6th-level star domain had fully invaded and was conducting a wide search within the 5th-level star domain. However, with the cultivation and status of Li Qianmei and the others, they had no idea what exactly the invaders were looking for. Li Qianmei took a deep breath. As the three approached, he clasped his fists and respectfully said, "Guiyuan sect greets the sects from the upper domain." The two elderly men beside him and Li Qianmei also clasped their fists. "I am Feng Peishan of the Tao Fa sect," the middle-aged man said with a slight bow, his tone calm. "Didn't expect to find such a beauty here." The black-robed cultivator, Zhao Yu, glanced at Li Qianmei, a smirk playing on his lips as he said, "Little beauty, Zhao Yu of the Motsung sect, that's me." Zhou Hai of the Five Poisons sect. Zhou Hai's expression remained dark. After speaking, his right eye flashed with blue light as he scanned the Guiyuan sect's cultivators. Li Qianmei took a deep breath, exchanging a solemn look with the two elderly men beside him. They all sensed the grave weight of the situation. These three sects almost controlled nearly 40% of the 6th-level star domain's power. With their strength, they could destroy the Guiyuan sect with a mere thought. The disciples behind them trembled under Zhou Hai's gaze, not daring to look him in the eye. Only Li Qianmei remained calm, silent, and composed. Li Qianmei suppressed his unease, forcing a smile as he clasped his fists. "We are uncertain as to the purpose of your visit, but if the Guiyuan sect can be of any assistance, We will surely do our utmost. Zhou Hai snorted coldly, stepping forward and immediately walking to a Guiyuan sect disciple. His right hand struck like lightning, touching the disciple. The Guiyuan sect disciple immediately trembled, spat out a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying, falling towards the ground below. This sudden scene caused the Guiyuan sect cultivators to change their expressions. Sun Yun, in particular, glared angrily. She swiftly moved toward the fallen disciple, catching his body. The Guiyuan sect disciple's face was pale, trembling, with blue light emanating from his face as if enduring tremendous pain, yet he could not scream. Is hurting a nascent soul disciple your purpose for coming here? LV Yanfei's eyes revealed a coldness as she spoke slowly. Feng Peishan smiled and shook his head. Fellow Taoists of Guiyuan sect, please don't be alarmed. This matter is of great importance. All the sects of our six-star domain have mobilized to search for a person, one who is highly skilled in hiding. The only clue we have is that this person possesses poison-based abilities. Just now, fellow Taoist Zhou's action was prompted because one of your Guiyuan sect's younger disciples showed signs of poisoning. LV Yanfei's eyes turned even colder. She raised her right hand and pointed towards the injured Guiyuan sect disciple in the air. Immediately, his body trembled violently, and a vortex appeared in the center of his forehead. In no time, his nascent soul flew out, with a small red serpent soul coiling around it. This was his life-bound spirit beast. However, at that moment, the small serpent appeared weak, as though it was on the brink of death. Even the disciple's nascent soul had become nearly transparent. Zhou Hai's expression remained grim. His gaze swept over the nascent soul before he turned his attention back to the remaining Guiyuan sect disciples. After a moment, his right eye flashed with blue light, and he continued to focus on the others. Suddenly, he spun around and stepped forward, heading straight towards Sun Yun, who was supporting the injured disciple. Sun Yun's face changed. With her cultivation, she could not resist. At that moment, a murderous aura appeared on LV Yanfei's face. It surged like a rainbow as she raised her right hand, casting a spell and sending a gust of cold wind rushing toward Zhou Hai. Zhou Hai sneered, his right eye flashing again. Instantly, 7 blue seals appeared around him, forming a protective barrier. He didn't even glance at the howling cold wind and walked forward without hesitation. Boom, boom. The sound of explosions echoed as the cold wind shattered the instant it neared Zhou Hai. It couldn't stop him at all. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Hai was standing in front of Sun Yun. LV Yanfei's killing intent intensified. Sun Yun was her disciple, and she couldn't stand idly by as someone harmed her. Just as she was about to make her move, Li Qianmei and the 2 elders next to him also wore dark expressions, ready to stop Zhou Hai. After all, Sun Yun wasn't just any disciple. She was a core member of Guiyuan sect. At that moment, Sun Peishan from the Daofa sect let out a low shout, his eyes shining with a fierce light. Guiyuan sect, if you continue to interfere with our search, you will bear the consequences. This shout shook the heavens and the earth, accompanied by the roar of thunder. It seemed as though the voice carried the weight of celestial laws, and there was a strange divine power behind it. Even the ground trembled slightly, and the clouds in the sky twisted, sending waves of ripples in all directions. The disciples of Guiyuan sect trembled violently. Blood flowed from their mouths and noses, and their ears rang with a buzzing sound. Even LV Yanfei, Li Qianmei, and the others felt a pause in their movements, their faces filled with shock. Words become law. Li Qianmei took a deep breath. Zhao Yu's eyes showed disdain as his gaze swept across the Guiyuan sect's mountain gates and pavilions. Suddenly, his brow furrowed as he looked toward the Southern Courtyard. At that moment, Zhou Hai fixed his gaze on the pale Sun Yun and coldly said, "Little girl, you smell of fishy grass. This poison grass grows only in the nests of 6-star fierce beasts and cannot grow anywhere else. With your Guiyuan sect's cultivation level, you couldn't possibly obtain it. The scent on you is still fresh. Where did you get it from?" Sun Yun's face drained of color. The blue light from Zhou Hai's right eye brought an immense pressure, causing her mind to shake. Hearing this, she bit her lower lip and looked at her master in the distance. Zhou Hai's face twisted into a sinister smile as he turned to look at LV Yanfei. "Fellow Taoist LV, Zhou would like to hear your explanation." "We, as juniors, do not have the cultivation to obtain such herbs from a 6-star fierce beast's lair, but that does not mean our elders cannot. This fishy poison grass was obtained by my Grand Elder. Li Qianmei replied calmly. Grand Elder? Zhou Hai's eyes flashed with disdain. His spiritual sense spread, scanning the area before he slowly looked down at the Southern Courtyard. His body shifted forward as he headed straight for it. His speed was incredibly fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was near the Southern Courtyard. As he entered this forbidden ground of Guiyuan's sect, his body suddenly shook. His eyes widened in shock as he realized that the Southern Courtyard felt like a separate world from the outside. Upon entering, he immediately felt a terrifying presence coming from an unremarkable medicine garden at the edge of the Southern Courtyard. It felt as though there was a powerful, fierce beast within the garden, and just the aura emanating from it was enough to freeze Zhou Hai's blood. Those who harm others will themselves be harmed. The voice was cold and emotionless, carrying an eerie chill that pierced through the air. Zhou Hai's face changed dramatically. His body went pale as an overwhelming sense of danger suddenly enveloped him. Without hesitation, he began to retreat, intending to leave the terrifying Southern Courtyard. But in that moment, Zhou Hai suddenly felt an unimaginable shock, as if a mountain were crashing down on him, heading straight for his chest. With a loud bang, Zhou Hai spat out fresh blood and was thrown backward. His body shook violently, blood splattering in an arc as he was flung into the air. His chest was torn open, revealing a pitch-black palm print deeply imprinted on his chest. The surge of life force seemed to be drawn by some kind of force, heading straight for the injured disciple from the Guiyuan sect. This person trembled, the blue light on his face dissipated, and he returned to normal. With a thud, Zhou Hai hit the ground, his face ashen, his body twitching, and his eyes filled with intense fear. A terrifying silence hung in the air, so still it was eerie. Zhao Yu of the Motsong sect gasped, his eyes wide with shock. He stared fixedly at the Southern Courtyard, instinctively retreating several feet. He never expected that this elder from the Guiyuan sect would have such cultivation. Thinking back to how he had been rude to Li Qianmei before, Zhao Yu felt his scalp go numb. It wasn't that he was attracted to her beauty, but that was just his nature. Moreover, all the 5-tier sects he had encountered along the way were always polite and respectful, as if they were there to be pushed around. To think that Guiyuan sect has such a powerful expert. Feng Peishan also narrowed his eyes, his expression extremely serious. The old monster who could easily injure Zhou Hai was no ordinary cultivator. Who gave the authority to harm anyone from my Guiyuan sect? A cold voice echoed across the world. Unlike Feng Peishan's words that became law or the earth-shaking roar, this calm sentence was like a sharp blade, piercing the hearts of Feng Peishan, Zhao Yu, and Zhou Hai. Like the surrounding silence, this voice carried an oppressive aura. A rustling of footsteps came from within the Southern Courtyard. Wang Lin, with his hands behind his back, slowly walked out. His hair was black, swaying in the wind, and his expression gave nothing away. His eyes were like the sun, moon, and stars. Those who met his gaze felt as if their primordial spirit was being pulled away, as if they were trapped in an illusion, unable to distinguish between truth and falsehood. This feeling was profound, and though no one could clearly explain it, it was unmistakable. It felt as if everything in the world could disappear or change with just a thought from this person, shifting between reality and illusion, creating a perpetual cycle. The Tao of artistic conception. Feng Peishan's face turned pale. As the highest-ranking disciple of the #1 sect at the 6th stage, he immediately recognized that the elder from the Guiyuan sect was using the Tao of artistic conception. What terrified him even more was that the other party wasn't doing it intentionally. It was a natural flow. The Tao moved with him. His words shaped the Tao. This realm was far superior to words become law. The Taoism of their sect focused primarily on the concept of the Tao, and in Feng Peishan's memory, only the supreme grand elder of their sect possessed such a divine art, where the Tao flowed with their every movement. He stands there, and he is the Tao. Feng Peishan instinctively took several steps back, his mind flashing back to a phrase once said by the Grand Elder. Is it you? Wang Lin calmly walked over to Zhou Hai, who was struggling to rise, and looked down, as though gazing at an ant. Zhou Hai's body trembled even more violently, especially when he accidentally glanced at Wang Lin's eyes. His body shook uncontrollably, and the world around him seemed to blur, as though the person who had harmed him was now the world itself, and he was just a tiny, weak being within it. His heart raced, and his mind spun wildly. He couldn't gauge the other's cultivation, but at that moment, he felt that even all the elders and the sect master of the Five Poisons sect could not instill such fear in him. Withdrawing his gaze, Wang Lin looked up at the sky and turned to Zhao Yu. He spoke calmly. "Is it you again?" Zhao Yu instinctively licked his lips. He looked at the struggling Zhou Hai on the ground, and then at Wang Lin, his demeanor immediately becoming respectful. "I, Zhao Yu of the Matsung sect, greet you, senior." Zhao Yu quickly cupped his fists, his expression full of respect, hiding his fear, but he dared not look directly at Wang Lin's eyes. "Or is it you?" Wang Lin's gaze shifted to Feng Peishan of the Dao sect. Feng Peishan's face was ashen. He cupped his fists and said softly, "Please forgive me, senior. You said before that if they stopped you from harming my Guiyuan sect disciples, they would have to bear the consequences." Wang Lin's cold eyes locked onto Feng Peishan. Feng Peishan's forehead broke out in sweat. He dared not look at Wang Lin's eyes. He had a sinking feeling that if the person before him were to get angry, with his own cultivation, he would likely be annihilated in an instant. After a moment of silence, Feng Peishan gritted his teeth and raised his right hand to fiercely slap his chest. With a loud bang, his body trembled, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face turned even paler, and his primordial spirit shook, clearly injured. "Senior, may I ask for your forgiveness?" Feng Peishan, not wiping the blood from his lips, said bitterly. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged as he turned his gaze to Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu forced a smile. Since Feng Peishan dared not provoke this person, how could he? Moreover, he hadn't even seen the other party make a move. Zhou Hai had been heavily injured and thrown out. Even if he resisted, it seemed utterly futile. Grinding his teeth, Zhao Yu also raised his right hand and slapped his chest hard. Blood spurted out, and he took several steps back. He cupped his fists to Wang Lin and respectfully said, "Please calm your anger, senior." This scene stirred intense excitement among the surrounding disciples of the Origin Reunion sect. One by one, they looked at Wang Lin with fervent reverence. Li Qianmei and the others were no exception. "You may continue your search," Wang Lin said calmly. "No need." Feng Peishan began hastily, but before he could finish, Wang Lin cut him off. "Once you're done searching, get off the Moro continent immediately." "Understood," Feng Peishan replied with a bitter smile. He knew that the actions of the three of them had clearly angered this grand elder of the Origin Reunion sect. The only reason they hadn't been killed was likely because of the sects they belonged to. If word gets back to our sect that we offended a terrifying elder capable of moving with Tao itself, we'll be in for a scolding. Even the sect wouldn't dare provoke someone with such immense divine art. Just a wave of this senior's hand left Zhou Hai heavily injured, and given his cultivation, being gravely wounded or outright killed was only a matter of the senior's will. Had he wished to kill, Zhou Hai would already be dead. With a sigh, Feng Peishan recalled his master's parting words. His master had once said that beyond people, there are always stronger people, and beyond the sky, greater skies. The Cloud Sea Star domain harbored many powerful, hidden elders with vast divine arts. These beings roamed unpredictably. Any fifth-tier star domain was bound to contain a few of them. Every fifth-tier sect, passed down for generations, might have cultivators who had left early on, but whose cultivation had since become earth-shaking. They might not be well known, but when encountered, they must be treated with the utmost care. That's why during this search, they had been explicitly warned. If they came across such elders, they must remain respectful and explain their intentions clearly, avoiding offense at all costs. With a respectful farewell, Feng Peishan left. Yet after a moment's hesitation, he still conducted a careful search of the Moro continent. Eventually, with nothing found, all the disciples regrouped. Supporting Zhou Hai and accompanied by Zhao Yu, they quickly departed the continent with their people. Only when they broke through the protective barrier and emerged into the starry sky did Feng Peishan and Zhao Yu finally breathe a sigh of relief. As for Zhou Hai, after taking some pills, he recovered slightly, barely enough to fly under his own power. But his face remained pale, and a faint look of lingering dread could still be seen. "Brother Zhou," Feng Peishan said gravely, "tell us in detail, what exactly happened in the Southern Courtyard? How did that senior make his move?" Still haunted by the brush with death, Zhou Hai stayed silent for a while before speaking softly. "That senior's cultivation is at least at the mid-shattered nirvana stage or above. I didn't actually see him make a move. As soon as I entered the Southern Courtyard, I felt an unimaginable surge of heaven and earth energy being manipulated. It formed a palm imprint and struck me square in the chest." As he spoke, he glanced down. On his chest, the palm mark was still pitch black. "Was it a poison attack?" Zhao Yu asked suddenly. Zhou Hai shook his head. There were no signs of poison on that senior. It wasn't the poison crone. Besides, she wouldn't have that kind of presence or cultivation. I also observed the disciples of the Origin Reunion sect just now. Their reverence and pride didn't seem fake. That senior truly is their grand elder. Indeed. Feng Peishan nodded, his voice low and serious. If he were truly someone connected to the poison crone, or had learned of the elixir formula and jade slip, he wouldn't have acted so openly. He'd have hidden himself and waited until we were done searching to make an appearance. With his cultivation, that would have been easy, and he certainly wouldn't have injured Zhou Hai and then demanded a price from me and Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu nodded as well, a chill running through him as he recalled the earlier encounter. That grand elder of the Origin Reunion sect is too powerful. Even in our 6th-tier star domain, someone like him would be treated with the utmost caution. Thankfully, we only injured someone and didn't kill anyone. If we had... He trailed off, glancing at Zhou Hai. Zhou Hai said nothing, but inwardly, his heart was filled with ice and fear. On our way here earlier, Zhao Yu continued with a chuckle, we caught sight of people from the Violet Dao sect. They seemed to be targeting the Origin Reunion sect. Looked like there was some personal grudge. But this time, Lu Yunsong from Violet Dao sect is in for a hard lesson. Lu Yunsong is not a simple man, Feng Peishan said quietly, clearly unwilling to continue the topic. Then, in a more serious tone, he added, enough. From now on, the three of us must act more cautiously. Let's head to another continent. The three turned into streaks of light, leading their sect disciples swiftly into the distance. To have earned the attention of the first elder, that person is certainly no ordinary figure. And Lu Yunsong's origin seems shrouded in mystery as well. Within the streaks of light, Feng Peishan shook his head, putting the matter aside. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from the distant sky. Before making his move, he had already thought things through. During his brief time on the primordial continent, even though he had shifted his focus, he still left behind some traces. These traces he couldn't go back and erase. Even if he had the time, trying to erase them would only leave more behind. That's enough. The most important thing now is to quickly improve my cultivation. If I'm eventually discovered, I can always make an early trip to the Wind Immortal realm. From the memories of the Poison Crone and the time spent with the Guiyuan sect, Wang Lin had already learned that the Wind Immortal realm in the Cloud Sea Star domain doesn't need to be activated. It's always open. Its entrance is in the northern part of the 8-tier star domain, but almost no one dares to venture deep into the Wind Immortal realm within the Cloud Sea. Most only explore the outer areas for treasure. The Wind Immortal realm is my trump card prepared for Toasin. A cold light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. It was precisely because of the importance he placed on the Wind Immortal realm that he had taken the risk of attempting the beast refining technique from the Poison Crone's memory. If successful, Wang Lin's chances of entering the Wind Immortal realm would greatly increase. Moreover, within that beast refining land, Wang Lin had set up a spiritual restriction. Unless someone surpassed his understanding of the restriction, they would never be able to detect it. Additionally, with a single thought, everything inside could be completely destroyed, so Wang Lin wasn't concerned about being discovered. On the back of the fierce tiger spirit beast sat more than 30 people, all with calm expressions, meditating with their eyes closed. These people, both male and female, exuded the aura of cultivators. In front of them, next to the fierce tiger spirit beast's horn, stood a middle-aged man. His purple robe fluttered without wind, and he stood with his hands behind his back, silently staring at the star mist ahead, seemingly deep in thought. Behind him, An elder respectfully followed, accompanying him as they both gazed ahead. Sect Master, with the tiger beast's speed, we'll reach the Moro continent in about a day, the elder said softly. These people were disciples of the Violet Dao sect. Initially, their journey to the Moro continent hadn't been planned to take so long, but because of the alchemy prescription and jade slip matter and the invasion of the 6th-tier star domain sect, the Violet Dao sect had to delay their trip. Once all the minor matters were dealt with and the search within the 6th-tier star domain was completed, the Violet Dao sect immediately set out, heading towards the Guiyuan sect. The middle-aged man continued to focus on the star mist ahead, as if in deep thought. After a long while, he nodded slightly and said calmly, "The things that need to be resolved will eventually have an answer." The elder was momentarily stunned, not understanding the meaning behind the words of the most esteemed person of the Violet Dao sect. In his mind, the journey to the Guiyuan sect should be straightforward, and there was no need for any answers. Sect Master. The elder was about to speak when the middle-aged man shook his head and said, "You don't understand. A great chaos is coming, and the cloud sea will no longer be peaceful." The elder fell silent and did not speak. Because of an alchemy prescription and a jade slip, not only are the 6th-tier star domain forces coming, but even 7th-tier and 8th-tier cultivators are arriving. Is it worth it? The middle-aged man seemed to be speaking to himself, a shadow of gloom in his expression. That alchemy prescription and jade slip are indeed of great value. It's no surprise they stir people's hearts, the elder whispered. That alchemy prescription is an ominous object. When it first appeared, it triggered a calamity in the cloud sea. Now that it has appeared for the second time, it's uncertain who took the prescription. The longer the prescription remains exposed, the greater the scope of the ensuing disaster will be. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed deeply. According to our investigation, it was that poison crone from the 5 Poison sect who took the alchemy prescription and jade slip and hid them away. The elder hesitated before speaking in a low voice. Don't underestimate those old monsters from the 6th-tier star domain sects. The middle-aged man smiled slightly. The elder froze for a moment, then thought carefully and said, "Could it be someone else? If it really was that poison crone who took them, would the 5 Poison sects still be in existence?" The middle-aged man's eyes gleamed with wisdom as he whispered, "With her cultivation, how could she withstand Luoxing's self-detonation power? How could she avoid detection under such intense search efforts? How could she have killed Qian Guizhong from the Huaqing sect during her escape?" The elder gasped, his mind shaken. After a long pause, he finally regained his composure, his eyes showing shock. Qian Guizhong from the Huaqing sect was killed. He clearly hadn't known about this. The poison crone couldn't have done all this. Only the mysterious cultivator who truly obtained the jade slip and alchemy prescription could have such strength. This person must have had no choice but to kill Qian Guizhong. Perhaps they encountered him when leaving the primordial continent, and suspicions arose, which forced them to act. The middle-aged man's eyes showed admiration and understanding. Such ruthless methods, decisive actions, and the clean killing of Qian Guizhong. Furthermore, in the chaos, they managed to redirect the 6th-tier cultivator's attention onto the poison crone, creating confusion and buying valuable time. They managed to escape before the 6th-tier cultivators could react. Even I, if I were in their place, might not have been able to accomplish this. More importantly, this person's mind is incredibly deep. I don't know if his decision to shift his target to the poison crone has some deeper meaning. If he truly sees through the essence of the matter, and thus framed the poison crone, then his intellect has already become demonic. The middle-aged man's eyes grew more intense with admiration. The elder beside him felt his heart racing. After a moment of contemplation, he still seemed confused. The middle-aged man did not turn around, but as though clearly sensing the elder's confusion, he softly spoke. If the jade slip and the alchemy prescription are successfully obtained, it would be an omen of prosperity for a 6th-level star domain. But if they disappear after the clues are found, it will be a disaster. What they need is an explanation. An explanation for the 7, 8, or even 9-star domains. The elder's eyes widened with realization, mixed with disbelief. His chest heaved for a moment before he spoke gravely. So they're allowing the 5 Poison sect to continue existing, and have pinned the blame on the poison crone. Even Qian Guizhong's death is likely to be blamed on the experts of the Five Poisons sect. The middle-aged man smiled faintly, as if speaking to himself. This mysterious cultivator is astute. He provided an explanation for the 6th-level cultivators. Regardless of how things ultimately unfold, with this explanation, their disaster will be mitigated. Otherwise, how could there be no shattered Nirvana cultivators in the search teams? It's just a group of pure Nirvana cultivators searching for a mysterious person who could kill a shattered Nirvana cultivator in the time it takes to burn an incense stick. If I were the sect master of a 6th-level sect, I might even help erase all the clues for that mysterious cultivator. I wouldn't let any trace show. In that case, only the Five Poisons sect would perish. The elder beside him was shaken, looking at the middle-aged man with deep respect and caution, even a trace of fear. He had followed Lu Yunsong for many years, watching him rise from obscurity to greatness. The Violet Dao sect, which had been a minor sect in the 5th-level star domain 3,000 years ago, was now a force to be reckoned with. Though it was not the strongest in the 5th-level star domain, even the 6, 7, and 8-level star domains knew the name Lu Yunkong. I would really like to cross paths with this mysterious cultivator. I have a feeling, one day, I will meet this person. The middle-aged man's eyes gleamed with anticipation, his figure standing with hands clasped behind his back, as if a mountain in the elder's eyes. The elder fell silent. Time passed slowly, and the fierce tiger spirit beast broke through the star mist, its speed increasing. When they were only half a day's journey from Moro continent, a sudden blue light appeared ahead in the starry sky. The light was bizarre, penetrating the star mist and turning the mist itself into a blue glow, as if painted with color. The fierce tiger spirit beast immediately halted, its eyes revealing vigilance, even fear. It growled low but did not dare to approach. This sudden event caused the more than 30 cultivators on the fierce tiger spirit beast's back to open their eyes simultaneously. Each face was calm, and they silently stood up, coldly staring ahead, without the slightest sign of panic. They were cultivators of the Violet Dao sect, core disciples personally trained by the sect leader, Lu Yunsong. They were proud. They could die or lose, but they could never panic. Even if a mountain collapsed in front of them, they would remain calm. The elder beside Lu Yunsong's expression grew serious, his gaze fixed on the eerie blue light ahead. Only Lu Yunsong remained unchanged, quietly watching the mist ahead as though nothing had happened. The blue mist spread and gradually enveloped a radius of 1,000 feet. After a moment, the mist began to roll, and from it, a graceful figure emerged. With blue hair and white robes, the exquisite face was neither cold like an iceberg nor soft like the first rays of the sun. It exuded only tranquility and elegance. In her jade hands was a green flute, like a celestial being stepping out of the void, descending upon the mortal world. As the celestial figure drew closer, the moment her full form appeared, the blue mist within a 1,000-foot radius surged violently, slowly taking on substance and transforming into a 1,000-foot-long blue spirit dragon. The celestial figure stood atop the dragon's head, gazing at Lu Yunsong in quiet contemplation. Her eyes were utterly pure, without a hint of fluctuation, a pristine clarity. Her gaze was like a deep, tranquil pool, capable of making anyone who looked into it lose themselves. Even the most violent person would calm in her presence, feeling an unspoken sense of shame rise in their heart. Li Qianmei, Lu Yunsong, still with hands clasped behind his back, fixed his gaze on the woman. Though he was astonished by the tranquility and the mysterious beauty of her aura, his expression remained unchanged. 9th-level Skybreaker sect, Li Qianmei. The elder beside Lu Yunsong took a few steps back, his expression wary. He instantly recognized her, the only blue-haired woman in the Cloud Sea star domain, Li Qianmei. Qianmei greets Brother Lu. The woman smiled, slightly bowing towards Lu Yunkong. Brother Li, you flatter me. Lu Yunsong replied with a cupped fist salute and a smile. Brother Lu, Qianmei has 3 questions she would like to ask. I hope you can help dispel my doubts. The woman smiled gently, her demeanor serene as she spoke in a soft voice. Along her journey, she had asked the same questions to many, each a remarkable figure in their own right. Yet not one had been able to satisfy her curiosity. Of the 3 questions she carried, she had never gone beyond the first. No one had ever made it to the second, let alone the third. Please, go ahead, Lu Yunsong nodded. The first question, what is the sky? The woman asked softly. Lu Yunsong glanced at Li Qianmei, fell silent for a moment, then slowly said, the sky is a cage. The woman frowned slightly, her expression captivating. But after a moment, her eyes lit up, and a smile bloomed on her face like a blossoming lily. Brother Lu, that is an intriguing answer. I'd like to know, why is the sky a cage? That's your second question? Lu Yunsong asked with a smile. No, still the first, she replied, brushing a strand of her blue-black hair behind her ear, her voice quiet and calm. Li Qianmei thought for a moment. Her eyes grew brighter, admiration glinting within as she tucked her hair behind her ear and said softly, your answer is unique, Brother Lu. I've asked many, but only you have truly addressed the confusion in my heart. You praise me too much, Lu Yunsong replied with a slight smile. You're the first person who's ever brought me to the second question. I hope you'll continue to enlighten me. Li Qianmei looked at the man before her. She had long heard tales of the remarkable Lu Yunsong from the 5th-tier star domain, an individual with profound intellect and an unusually deep understanding of the Tao. If, after answering all 3 of your questions, I manage to resolve your doubts, will there be a reward? Lu Yunsong asked, still smiling, his eyes fixed on hers. Li Qianmei blinked, then chuckled lightly. If you can truly resolve my doubts, I'll play a flute melody just for you. Very well. Lu Yunsong laughed heartily and gave her a long, thoughtful look. He still couldn't quite grasp the deeper purpose behind her questions. The second question, what is the sky? Li Qianmei asked again, her voice soft as ever, eyes locked on Lu Yunkong. The elder beside Lu Yunsong had been quietly listening the whole time. When the first question was answered, he smiled. But upon hearing the second, his expression instantly turned odd. Lu Yunsong furrowed his brows and sank into thought. This time, his silence stretched much longer than before. Li Qianmei remained unhurried, standing quietly as she watched him, waiting. The sky is a path, Lu Yunsong finally said after the time it takes an incense stick to burn. How so? Li Qianmei asked gently, after considering his words. Lu Yunsong looked up toward the starry sky. After a moment's silence, he said, the ground beneath our feet is part of heaven and earth. Thus, the sky is the path we tread. It is because there is a path that there is Tao. The phrase Tao is the way means exactly that. The Tao is like a path, and the path is the Tao. The sky is the path. It's a direction, a guide that shows us how to break through the cage. Li Qianmei's eyes shimmered with greater brilliance, the admiration in them growing stronger. Thank you, Brother Lu. Your words have brought clarity to my mind. May I ask, where are you headed next? The old man beside Lu Yunsong hesitated before cupping his fists and asking, would that be the third question? Li Qianmei smiled serenely without answering. To the Moro continent, to resolve a matter that weighs on my heart, and to seek an explanation, Lu Yunsong replied, his tone calm, with no trace of regret. Even though he understood, he wouldn't get a chance to answer the third question. Would Brother Lu mind if I accompanied you? Li Qianmei asked, blinking and speaking gently. I would be honored to travel with you, Qianmei. Lu Yunsong laughed heartily and nodded. And so, the two of them journeyed together, conversing softly along the way, discussing the fruits of the Tao, affirming insights. Mutual appreciation grew with each word exchanged. The old man followed a few steps behind, occasionally casting glances at the two, his expression curious and quietly pleased. Since the death of the sect master's wife, he has had no Tao companion. Though this is his first meeting with Li Qianmei from the 9th-tier Skybreaker sect, they seem to be deeply in sync. If they were to become Tao partners, then with the sect master's talents, his path would surely rise to new heights. And our Violet Tao sect might just make a name for itself across the Cloud Sea. Since leaving the Skybreaker sect, Li Qianmei had rarely engaged in such conversation. Nor had anyone earned the right to speak with her so candidly. Except for Lu Yunkong. No wonder even his master praised him as the foremost figure in the 5th-tier star domain. Even the divine sect has taken notice of him. He truly is a rare and extraordinary man. To grasp the Tao so deeply at his age, it's nearly unheard of. My own cultivation may surpass his, but in understanding, I fall short. What a pity. Even someone like him can only reach the second question, Li Qianmei thought quietly. Qianmei wished to find the mysterious cultivator who had obtained the jade slip, though she feared this might be difficult. As the two of them conversed, time slowly passed, and the conversation eventually turned to the mysterious cultivator who had acquired both the jade slip and the alchemy prescription. Lu Yunsong did not hide anything, nor was there any need to. He simply spoke his mind. This mysterious cultivator possesses such intelligence. It seems finding him will indeed not be easy. Li Qianmei nodded and said. After hearing Lu Yunsong's analysis, a hint of interest grew in her heart toward this mysterious cultivator. Decisive in action, cunning as a demon, ruthless in his killings. Few people in my life have earned my admiration, but this mysterious cultivator certainly deserves a place among them, Lu Yunsong praised, his eyes filled with a deep sense of mutual respect. All of this is merely your analysis, Brother Lu. Perhaps the truth is not as you think, Li Qianmei said softly. I hope my guess is true. Give me the chance to cross paths with him, and my life would certainly become more thrilling. Lu Yunsong sighed deeply, his eyes filled with anticipation. As the group continued on, the distance to the Moro continent grew shorter. At this moment, a faint shadow of the continent could be seen through the hazy star mist in the distance. The fierce tiger spirit beast gradually came to a stop, floating motionlessly in the starry sky, its cold eyes fixed on the distant horizon. After all, the Violet Tao sect shares the same main sect as the Guiyuan sect. We mustn't cause too much of a stir. I'll go alone. You all stay here, Lu Yunsong calmly said, turning to the elderly man beside him. The elder nodded in agreement. Qianmei, come with me, Lu Yunsong said with a slight smile, his gaze resting on Li Qianmei. Li Qianmei gently nodded, and the two of them transformed into two streaks of light, shooting straight toward the Moro continent. The elder watched their vanishing figures and murmured, perhaps the sect leader and she truly could become Tao companions. Moro continent. Wang Lin had already made a few attempts with the medicinal pills of the Cloud Sea Star domain, using the beast souls within each pill to sense their essence. Through this, he had subtly grasped the fundamental concept of Cloud Sea alchemy. By using beast souls to perceive the way of heaven, he sought to integrate it into his own conceptual realm. At this moment, Wang Lin sat cross-legged in the medicine garden, having turned down the requests to meet from Li Yanfei and others. Holding an 8th-tier pill in his hand, he appeared deep in thought. The alchemy of the Cloud Sea Star domain has a flaw. While it allows one to use beast souls to comprehend the Tao, it is difficult to grasp the complete essence. To obtain the required understanding from the chaotic mix, one must constantly consume the pills to succeed. After a moment of silence, Wang Lin stared at the pill in his hand. Suddenly, his expression shifted, and he looked up toward the distance. They're here. His face remained unchanged, not a hint of emotion visible, as he returned his gaze to the pill. Before long, the door to the medicine garden slowly opened, and a man and a woman entered. The man, middle-aged, wore a purple robe, his appearance dignified. His eyes, like stars, seemed to contain endless wisdom. The woman beside him was stunningly beautiful, her skin like polished jade. She wore white clothes like snow, and in her hand, she held a jade flute that sparkled. She exuded a transcendent air, radiating tranquility. Their arrival drew no attention from the disciples of the Guiyuan sect, as if they had appeared out of thin air. Upon entering the garden, the middle-aged man's gaze fell on Wang Lin, and his pupils slightly contracted. He slowly walked over. His steps were not fast, but each footfall seemed to strike Wang Lin's heartbeat, as though following some unseen rule. With every step, an indescribable pressure naturally emanated. Even more strange was that, as the man advanced, the sky above him darkened suddenly, as though dark clouds had gathered, spreading across half of the heavens. As he continued forward, this shadowed world seemed to devour the daylight, moving along with him. Sit. Wang Lin did not look up. Given that this man and woman could approach him unnoticed by any of the Guiyuan sect disciples, Wang Lin wasn't surprised. He spoke a single word, but the moment it left his lips, The man's footsteps faltered, as if the previous steps had been disrupted, making it impossible to distinguish reality from illusion. It felt as if everything from before collapsed with a single thought from Wang Lin. Lu Yunsong's expression immediately became serious. He felt this sensation clearly. Earlier, he had spread out his cultivation and comprehension, precisely enveloping the white-robed man before him. Every step the man took was an attack in the form of his comprehension. As the man continued, his aura fused with the heavens and earth, the sky turning dark as if he were using the power of the world to bear down on the unassuming white-robed figure. If it were anyone else, these few steps would have been enough to cause their Tao to collapse, their primordial spirit to suffer, and in severe cases, leave an imprint in their heart, destroying their Tao foundation. Even if someone could resist, they would undoubtedly reveal a trace of it. Lu Yunsong was extremely confident in the firmness of his Tao and Taoist thoughts. However, at this moment, he was moved, simply because of one word from the seemingly ordinary man in white in front of him. Once that word left his lips, everything he had previously believed shattered, as if all his past actions had turned into illusions. Why not sit? Wang Lin raised his head, his gaze shifting from the pill back to the man in purple. The moment their eyes met, it was as if invisible thunder crashed throughout the medicine garden. The man in purple instinctively took 2 steps back, his face changing drastically. As he retreated, the dark clouds in the sky seemed to be swept away by a fierce wind, torn apart in an instant, only to be replaced by a boundless clear sky. No matter how deep or profound Lu Yunsong's understanding of the Tao was, no matter how firm his Tao thoughts seemed, how could they compare to Wang Lin's? Wang Lin had cultivated for over 500 years, gaining insights into the cycle of life and death. After more than 900 years, he achieved perfection in the cycle of life and death, transforming into the karmic cycle. After over 1,000 years, he reached perfection in the karmic cycle, experiencing a second transformation into the realm of truth and illusion. Lu Yunsong had no way to compare and no right to compare. He simply couldn't. Li Qianmei had been observing all along. She came with Lu Yunsong because of her admiration for his understanding of the Tao. She had a fondness for him, believing that among the younger generation, very few could surpass Lu Yunsong in their grasp of the Tao. This was why Lu Yunsong was highly regarded by high-ranking sects in the star domains. But at this moment, her heart trembled. She looked at Wang Lin, her eyes shining with a brightness she had never shown before. "Brother, I have 3 questions to ask. Could you enlighten me?"